back to In the Zone. MV Pete, Coles, Rich Sutter, and the lamp is lit, folks. We are in the middle of basketball season, and that's what we do. It has been unbelievable. Part of the season, the first segment of the NCAA season has been unbelievable, and the NBA is off to a pretty good start as well. A lot of baselines being laid there. What I did want to say to everybody right off the jump, before we jump into our first segment of Pete's Corner, I did want to say to our friend Adam Silver, NBA commissioner, I want you to do me a favor, big guy. All right? During the holidays, I want you to get together with some of your family, some of your friends, and I want you to take the NBA play-in conference thing that you have going on right now and put a bullet in it. I want you to assassinate it. I want you to take it out. It's awful. It has no business being in the part of the season that it's in. If you took it to after the All-Star game, it might have a little bit more value, but nobody, and I mean nobody, outside of people who are sniffing this thing 24/7 has any idea what's going on right now in the NBA with this play-in thing, and nobody cares. Kill it. Okay, Pete, let's run into In the Zone segment, Pete's Corner, where Pete calculates and tabulates and formulates 3 questions for me, and then we rock and roll with it as best we can.
Okay, question number 1. Why should any team go to the Maui Invitational? The refereeing is not up to par, and it's just a pit. It's just like a pitfall.
Okay. I saw some of that. I'm assuming we're tacitly and in a background way referring to Coach Hurley here.
Yep.
And so let's jump right into that, Pete, okay? Out in Hawaii, Memphis, and Colorado just gave UConn 2 uppercuts to the chin. And it happens in basketball. And Coach Hurley, his sideline demeanor, he's in every single play. He wears it on his sleeve. He is absolutely Mr. Intensity on the sidelines. Okay? I'm going to throw just this out there for any coaches who might be listening, and maybe even Coach Hurley, who might catch a piece of this. Okay? As a coach, when you have a tendency to go that way, your team has a tendency to follow. And when you're on the sidelines and you're on every call and you're in every single scenario there, your team has a tendency to become unfocused and follow you down that path. I would avoid that at all costs if I could. But Pete, the Maui Invitationals for years and years been a great, great tournament. It really, really has. It brings us some of the great, it gave us 2 of the biggest upsets of the year already. You know, gave us 2 really, really great upsets of the year. And that Memphis-Connecticut game, if you're a huge basketball fan, was an absolutely great basketball game. Connecticut coming all the way back, showing great grit and toughness to forge the overtime. But Penny Hardaway's crew, they showed mettle and they showed steel, and you're going to see that in our Super 25, Pete. I have no idea what these algorithm people are looking at, but Memphis, just in a very, very near future, in the distant past, very, very, very recently, has beaten who I had as the number 1 team in the country, the University of Connecticut, who hadn't lost a game going all the way back to last year. And they also beat Michigan State the other night. This Memphis team is pretty good, Pete. All right. The refereeing was not great. I will give it that. But when the coaches are involved in it that much, it really, really exasperates the situation. It makes a difficult job. When you're refereeing that type of level athlete, that type of level contact, that type of level basketball, and you saw it in the Kansas-Duke game last night where Hunter Dickinson got tied up with somebody. They went to the ground, and I don't know, Dickinson, his leg happened across the guy's head while they were laying on the ground. Now, did you say he kicked him, or was it inadvertent contact? The referees didn't see it that way, and they dismissed and ejected him from the game, to which Bill Self went absolutely crazy on the sidelines. He was upset as well. So I get it, but the Maui Classic's been beautiful. Who doesn't want to go to Hawaii? I mean, but you know, you got to be able to grab some enjoyment out of this, fellas. You have to be able to grab some enjoyment out of this rather than the day that arrives when your paycheck arrives, because you get to see all those zeros, and I'm sure that's enjoyable. But you got to be finding a way, some other way, to put a smile on your face and to take that temperature down a little bit. only for yourself, for your own. That's not good for your own health reasons. But I saw the officiating. I didn't think it was great, but I think that's something that the Classic can improve on.
Yeah.
I would imagine it has a lot to do with dollars and cents of being able to travel. And, the refs all the way out there, they've got to stay out there for the duration of the tournament. Do you bring multiple sets of referees to the tournament, or do you just let one crew do the whole thing? I think that's probably a little bit of the issue going on right now. I think they did get stuck. Danny Hurley alluded to it in his press conference. I know two of the guys. I didn't even know the other guy. Talking about the referees, I think he's going to get a pretty significant fine for his post-game comments as well. I think the technical foul in the Memphis game was certainly not good. But what I say to people also is, and I've been in Danny Hurley's shoes, and so unless you've been in those shoes, you really, really have very, very little bit of ability to understand the whole thing.
That's why I asked the question.
And it's a great question, Pete, because there's so much balance there that I'd like to bring to it. A lot of people are killing Hurley right now. A lot of people are killing him. That was his level of success. It's like they said with Mike Tyson. If he doesn't be Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, will he still be unbeaten? Will he still be that guy? And so Danny Hurley now has to question whether he needs to change his style, or whether that style was good enough to get you 2 national championships, and you got to ride it. I think what I did see, though, in that whole thing, just to jump back in there, Pete, before we get to question 2, UConn's got some issues right now. UConn's got some issues. I don't know if they can get them straightened out. I still think they're a very solid team, but losing that game to Colorado on the follow back, to the Memphis game, I don't know. I think they play again today, so we'll see. We'll see, but that's going to be difficult to rectify, I think.
All right, question number 2. On Turkey Day in the Sutter household, football or basketball?
Bonnies are playing, Pete. All right, I got a good one for you. Okay. Bonaventure's associate head coach is Sean Neal. Great player at Cathedral, played in college basketball. His dad is Congressman Richard Neal.
Yep.
The congressman happened to be on our campus the other day, and he's walking. Pouring rain. He's got an umbrella up, but I noticed him. I see him from a while back, and I used to sit with him when Sean was in high school when I would recruit some of the players on that Cathedral team. Okay, so he knows me. I know him, and it's really a basketball-related thing. He knows me through Sean, and he's a wonderful, wonderful guy, Richie Neal. I don't know, I'm not a big politician person. I don't care for many of them, but he's one of them that I actually do like and care for. And I think it's one of the reasons he's been very successful with his tenure here as a congressman, the length of it, the depth of it, all of it. But he's walking on campus, and I'm driving. I roll down my window, and I say, Congressman Neal, how are you? Welcome to campus. And he looks right back at me, and he goes, Bonnie's 6-0, big game against Utah State. So he's lit up. He's lit up, and he's all in. He's 100% in. He was at the Hall of Fame Classic when they played Florida Atlantic. I saw him in the stands that night, and I would say that I went to a lot of Cathedral games that year because we were recruiting several of their players. And I would say he made almost every single one of those games for his son when his son was in his senior year. I sat with him a bunch of games, in that senior year. And that says a lot about him as a dad, too. Just a great family. And it was just a cool moment on campus the other day.
I saw him in Bradley Airport a lot. So he was back a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just, when it all comes down and it all gets measured out, he'll be one of the greatest politicians in Massachusetts history. Hands down, no question.
All right, question number 3. What are you grateful for?
That question would be a 1-hour show, Pete. I am blessed. I am grateful, and I try to let people know that I feel that way every day. I had a guy one time who was my boss, first out of college, and I grew up in the Bronx. So the Bronx is a place where you don't smile too much. Okay? When you get smile, they take your wallet. When you smile, you get beat up. When you smile, they take your girlfriend. Okay? So you don't smile a whole lot in the Bronx. And so this guy, I worked in this really, really elite prep school. And he was the athletic director, and I was the coach, brand new basketball coach, varsity basketball coach, just hired out of college. And it was a beautiful, beautiful campus. And being on that campus was actually really nice. And he looked at me all the time, and he said, Rich, you need to smile more. And I said, Rob, I'm smiling on the inside. I'm from the Bronx. We don't smile, bro. And so, but he said that to me, and I said, so, it goes back to a Bruce Springsteen song of, it ain't no sin to be glad you're alive. And I'm glad I'm alive. I'm glad I'm alive in this time. Pete, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you taking my phone call. I'm grateful for In the Zone. This is 83, 84 shows. We're closing in on 100. I'm grateful for my basketball team and the people that I work with at Westfield State. I'm grateful for being in the basketball community my whole life. That's been a blessing. So when I start counting blessings and gratefulness, man, each bite tomorrow at the Hotel Northampton, you're going to know how grateful I am. But I really do feel blessed. And I really do feel grateful. And I think that changes your whole life when you turn it that way. When you stop looking at everything that's going bad and you start looking at everything that's going good. You get lit up. You get super pumped. And if you ain't super pumped about your own life, well, nobody else is going to get super pumped for you, folks. Get super pumped. Get out there. It's vibrational. It attracts people. It brings people to you. And that's what you want in this world. Nobody wants to just hang out alone. And so when we go into the holidays, this is my favorite time of the year. I love Thanksgiving. It might be my most favorite day of the year. There'll be 2 televisions on. We'll watch the Cowboys because that's an old tradition in our family with Uncle Larry. And we will also turn on the Bonnies and watch the basketball. The NBA will have a bunch of games on. But I got to be honest with you. That's a day where I really like to turn away from it all. I like to sit with my daughter in the backyard and just laugh and giggle and be happy. And I like to sit with my wife and reminisce on our wonderful life together and how she's made me such a better person. And so that day I do love to give thanks, and I really, really wish that I had all my family around me on that day, but we don't. But I'm going to eat enough for everybody. Pete, that might have been your best In the Zone, Pete's question of the whole time we've been doing this. Great question. Pete, let's hop into the Power 15. It's hot. It's up and down. There's people going up. There's people going down. It's just like the holidays, an escalator ride at Macy's. Grab your hat, folks, because the Cleveland Cavaliers are laying baseline. They are 17-1. 17-1. Nobody would have said that in the beginning of the year. If they were offering odds on that in Vegas, they would have nobody ever bet on that. 17-1. And they are playing good basketball, Pete.
I wouldn't have bet on that. No way.
Nobody would. But let's look right now, Pete, because the Celtics have recalibrated. They've got Porzingis back in the lineup, and that paid huge dividends in a blowout against the Clippers the other night. It just stretches the floor. It creates another weapon. And then you have to guard a 7-foot player away from the basket. It opens up driving lanes for Tatum, for Brown, for White, who doesn't drive a whole lot, but it just opens up those lanes. And Porzingis being back, Horford sat out again. When they get those 2 guys back, I expect that the Celtics will be fully recalibrated, 15-3, and right now the Eastern Conference looks binary to me, Pete. OKC Thunder. This team is probably the best set franchise in the NBA right now. They've got talent, they've got players, and they got draft picks. They've got a lot of stuff going on in that organization, and right now they are probably the best team in the West. And if somebody would have said that 3 years ago, you would have laughed them right out of the building. The Golden State Warriors holding on to relevance, 12-5, couple of tough losses last week. We moved them down a little bit, but they have depth. And I said this a number of times with them. They have depth. And one of the things is I love when people listen to In the Zone because they take our advice. They moved Trace Jackson Davis. We said pick him like in the lottery. They had him in the 58, 59 range, way end at the end of the second round. And I thought he was going to be a great player in the NBA. Not a great player, but a very, very good, serviceable player for 10 years, 12 years, easy. They've moved him into the starting lineup. It's given them some frontline depth. Curry has been hobbled with a little bit of an injury, and they've still been producing because of that aforementioned depth. Okay, Pete, my number 5 spot, and I love it. Houston, we don't have a problem right now because the Rockets are taking off like rockets, playing great basketball, 13-6. Ime Udoka, great recovery story in the coaching business, but also this team has talent and they're young. They have talent, and they're young. They're going to be in the Western Conference conversation for a good long time. Orlando, the Magic. They're doing it with Magic. 12-7. They are riding a 3-game winning streak and doing it with Franz Wagner and some pieces because Banchero has been in and out. But they have some good young talent on that team. Some very good young talent on that team. The Los Angeles Lakers, we moved them into 7, Pete. They seem to be really good at home, and they seem to be struggling a little bit down the end. But as we say to everybody in this thing, defense is dead in the NBA. Pretty much dead. But if you want to win, you're still playing it. And some of the teams that are playing it, Cleveland, some of those teams are playing good defense, they're getting after it. When I watched the Lakers the other night, and I watched them a good bit, a good part of the game, their defense was awful. LeBron James's defense was awful. Anthony Davis's defense was non-existent. They got to get better if they want to win. They got to get better on the defensive end. Memphis Grizzlies, 11-7. This is a surprise team. Zach Edey has done what I thought that it would do because they brought Ja Morant back, and now you got a big in there that can hold the. What Edey does is he holds the defense down on the baseline for Morant. You got to cover the baseline now. Now you can't double and triple cover Morant. Him in the open floor is one of the best players in the NBA without question. I'm a little concerned about this next one, Pete. The Denver Nuggets. They got Joker, one of the best players in the game right now, if not the best player. Kyrie Irving playing great, but they just don't have a lot else. They brought in Klay Thompson, and we talked about this, Pete. Klay Thompson isn't shooting the ball well great over the last couple of years. Whatever happened, and it can happen, when you live by the jump shot, you can die by the jump shot. And Klay Thompson right now is struggling. And the pickup that the Mavericks thought they would have would go into the big 3 is really just back to binary, and every once in a while Thompson gets hot. But I don't know what's going on there, and I'm worried about that team a little bit. Here's a team that's shown great strides in the last couple of weeks, the New York Knicks. One of the reasons that I'm concerned about Denver is the Knicks just went in there on the road and absolutely throttled the Nuggets in Denver. And so the Knicks are recalibrated, playing pretty well. I'll give you this. When the ball moves out of Brunson's hands, the Knicks are really good. When the ball gets stuck in Brunson's hands, the Knicks are Okay, let's keep moving, Pete. Phoenix Suns, they have been the biggest drop. The sun is setting. I don't know if it's permanent, but right now the sun is setting on this Power 15, I'll tell you that. You got the Phoenix Suns, they just dropped a bunch of spots off of a L5. Wow. They're on 5-game losing streak, and that is largely in part due to the absence of Kevin Durant. He's too good a player to take out of your lineup, and you can survive it. They had DeAndre Ayton, and they traded him away. I thought that was a mistake, almost a critical mistake. I won't say it's a fatal mistake, but a critical mistake because it left their front line very, very soft. All right, the Clippers, 12, hard to be Harden. Not if you're out there by yourself and you're James Harden and you're just getting to control the ball, do it all the time. But you're going to be close, in that 500 range. But they're playing good basketball right now, 11-8. But they absolutely walked into the Porzingis punch the other night in Boston Garden and got absolutely annihilated. Dallas Mavericks, 10-8. Luka, you got Kyrie. They threw in the other piece. That's what we were talking about earlier, the Denver Nuggets kind of trying to find that third piece. I don't know. But the Mavericks are 10-8. The Spurs are 9-8. And the Milwaukee Bucks have climbed. They have won 5 games in a row, probably taking Doc Rivers off the hot seat for right this moment. They're 9-9. Okay, Pete, we got a little bit of a segment here called Once We're 15. These are people that were in our 15, but now have slid. Timberwolves. I don't know what's going on there. That trade with the Knicks did not help. Julius Randle, they should have watched him play defense, and then you would have wanted no part of him on your team. I can assure you that. But right now the Timberwolves are OP, which is out of playoff position right now, which is a big, big surprise. 76ers might be the biggest surprise of the year, but this has just been it's been absolute mash unit going on over there. They have more missed games of their stars than anybody in the NBA right now, and it shows. Something's got to change over there. And I'm a little surprised at the Kings. A little surprised at the Kings. Okay, Pete. We go into our Linda Ronstadt, you're no good, not hot segment. And the Phoenix Suns have lost 5 in a row. Washington Wizards, it's going to be a long, long winter down in Washington for the Wizards. They've lost 12 straight games in a row, and it don't look like it's going to get any better. All right, the Pelicans are 4-14, and the Jazz are 4-12. The Pelicans have lost 5 in a row. They're DFL in the Western Conference, and they are missing Zion Williamson. Right now, our Power 15 stays broken down, heavily dominated by the Western Conference, and you will move that 11-4. The East has 4 teams represented. We have Improvement City here, Pete. The road to improvement is always under construction. The road to success is always under construction. The Rockets and the Cavaliers are laying baselines as the Eastern and Western Conference surprises of the year. The Magic playing good basketball, and surprisingly, because I don't think their roster is that great. The Spurs, when Bayana has got them, carrying them around, and I think, they're showing some signs there. The Pistons are playing much better. They've won more games right now than they won probably before the All-Star break last year. And they're playing much better. Cade Cunningham really doing a great job with that team. The Blazers, Pete, they're not doing terrible either. But the Spurs and the Pistons right now would make the playoffs if we ended the season. End it right now. End the season right now. Put those teams in the playoffs. It's been horrible for them. All right. Now we go into our stat leaders, folks. Who's leading? Who's on the stat board?
Did somebody swap out the Washington Generals with the Washington Wizards or something?
They very well might have. and it seems like that's how they're doing their draft board as well. I wish they would tune into In the Zone once in a while, because the reset your pick, it's just, I don't get it. And Alex Sarr not doing great either. Those 1-2 European picks, I think the NBA wanted that for business more than they wanted it to beef up those rosters of those teams that are absolutely terminally ill and need some help. They need some really, really good bump here, but they're not getting it. All right, let's go to scoring, Pete. Who's leading the NBA in scoring right now? He only goes by one name, Giannis. The reason he goes by one name is because his last name is way too hard to spell. Giannis is in at 32-4. We got LaMelo, Pete, LaMelo. This guy takes more shots than NASA, though. LaMelo Ball, 31-0. He's trying to get another rocket lift off there. Anthony Davis been in and out of the lineup, but that 30-point number's holding up because he hasn't had any games that have dropped him off of that. Nikola Jokic, he's the Joker. 29-7, and SGA, we're not talking Student Government Association, folks. We're talking Shea Gilgeous-Alexander of the OKC Thunder, one of the bright young stars in the game today, if not the brightest. Okay, we're going to rebounds, Pete. That's where Joker gets into the NBA conversation as far as MVP. You got the Joker getting 13.4 rebounds. Sabonis, 12.9. I want to stop because Sabonis, for the Kings, pay attention to him, folks. He gets not a lot of coverage because he's in that small market area. This guy can play. I really, really got a chance to watch the Kings the other night because I was interested in seeing what De'Aaron Fox is doing to get to 60 and 49, play back-to-back, which, oh, my God, I can't believe the 76ers even had to hear that. But, hey, what can you do? But Sabonis is legit. All right, we got the big cat, Pete. He don't play defense, but he does occasionally grab a rebound or two, 12.6 rebounds. Vaka Zubac, 12.4. And Jacob Poeltl, 12.2. I did not see Andre Drummond's name on that list, Pete, the greatest rebounder of all time, according to Andre Drummond. Assists. Trae Young, 11.9. Again, how do you keep the Joker out of the MVP conversation when he is right now, after 20 plus basketball games, averaging a triple-double? He's averaging it, folks. Doesn't get it once in a while. He gets it every single night. Okay? So we got him here on a 10.9 on assists. LeBron, 9.1. Maybe Jeannie Buss and J.J. Redick sat down and watched In the Zone because we said put him at the point. Give him the ball. Been a point guard his whole life. 9.1, Pete, assist from the big guy LeBron. Cade Cunningham, 8.9. And we're happy to see this. Tyrese Halliburton had led the NBA in assists until that really, really bad groin injury that he caught last year. Kind of coming back off of that, but right now back up there with 8.8 assists and doing a good job. 3 balls, no Steph Curry on this list, Pete. It's unbelievable. And we got Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Tatum, White, Tatum and White, both of the Celtics, and Beasley. And you got 78 out of Edwards leading the NBA with 78 3 balls. No Steph Curry. The world is turning upside down, Pete. Blocks. It didn't take long. We were surprised, and one of the reasons we kept doing this was because Victor Wembanyama was not leading the NBA in blocks for the very first time in a long time. Guess what, Pete? The big stick is back. 3.6, and he's obliterating everybody else's numbers. Brook Lopez is down to 2.3. Klingon, the big Klingon, 2.2. Alex Sarr, aforementioned rookie, 2.0. Anthony Davis, 1.9. Okay. Now, when we talk about defense is dead, folks, we like to back it up. All right, we want to give you some of the pieces of what we're talking about. Right now, LaMelo Ball goes the other night for a 50-piece McNugget. Hornets 119, Bucks 125. It's amazing to me how many of these people, when they go for 50 and 60, they result in losses. It's really amazing to me. He also had 10 assists and 5 rebounds, though. That's an amazing game. 50 points, but he was 17 of 38 on field goals. Okay? That's a lot of shots. You know, that's below 500. So if you're going and you're getting 50, you should be shooting like 60, 70% that night because you're just feeling it, you know? Brandon Miller, the sophomore, also had a great game in that one. 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists. We've talked about it before, Pete. Right now, they might be the number 1 law firm in the country representing folks who just don't like to go to work. We call it the Leg Law Firm. Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid, and Paul George, the Leg Law Firm. Right now, it's Kawhi Leonard hasn't played a game, to my knowledge, all season, not one. Okay? Paul George and Embiid have been out for the last 3 games. They're going to be out again for the future. No back-to-backs. I mean, if I was the general manager of the 76ers, and I'm going to give you just a taste. I'm going to give you a Thanksgiving cranberry right here, okay? Get rid of those guys. Absolutely get rid of them tomorrow. Both of them. Get rid of them. If you can get anything for them. If there's any value left in it. I'm not sure there's going to be a whole lot of NBA franchises want to jump up to a bunch of guys who can't go back to back. Okay? Ongoing saga. Defense is dead. We're going to keep this rolling for you all weeks, folks. All year, all the way through, because you might see it turn in the second half like it did last year. As you get closer to playoffs, teams are fighting. But we have teams that are averaging, giving up over 120 points a game in the NBA.
Wow.
You're averaging that. Now, there's 135s in that. There's 140s in that. Every once in a while, it lowers out to 110. But, I mean, think about that. 120 points per game. You're not playing any defense. 0 defense.
I can remember that was an outlier.
Right. And the game really, really looked better. It's now a 3-point shooting contest. Okay? And that's why there's no secrets in this stuff. You either put out a good product, American people will support it. Put out a lousy product, the American people are going to run from it. Right now, the NBA is putting out a lousy product, and that people are running like Usain Bolt away from it. And now you got to go back and figure this out and say, well, what are we doing? And how do you get it back when you're giving guys $60 million and they don't even have to play? You're giving guys $50 million, and they don't even show up. Check Kawhi Leonard's numbers right now. See how much he's getting paid. And then look at that, the fact that he sat out for the first 20 games of the year. 25% of somebody's workload for the year, and he don't even have to do it, and he still keeps getting paid. That's why people are sprinting away from the NBA. 2 reasons. It ain't a 3-point shooting contest, folks. It's a basketball game. And the second piece in that layer, you better get the guys shooting the ball who can actually shoot it. You got guys hitting the side of the backboard. You got guys hitting air balls. You got guys shooting the ball like they don't even look like they know what they're doing shooting that basketball. It's not equal opportunity, folks. And these coaches don't have any control, so they just let them do whatever they want. Again, sprinting from you. They're running from you. But we had 50 points for LaMelo. All right? He's the fifth player to eclipse the 50-point mark already this year. We had De'Aaron Fox, almost did it twice. He had 60 and 49. You had Giannis throw up a 59-piece McNugget. You had Wembanyama go for 50 the other night. 6 of 9 from three-point range on Wembanyama, too. Banchero, he goes, and I mean, it's just crazy. Right now, and I'm a little surprised to say this because he's from New York, but Billy Donovan's Chicago Bulls are offering up a Thanksgiving buffet, a sumptuous buffet of 123.9 points per game to their opponents.
That's painful.
That's why you're in trouble. That's why you won't make the playoffs again, most likely. And that's why your franchise, once heralded great franchise, is in complete disarray right now because you're a chuck and duck operation. You're shooting 3 balls from everywhere, and you don't guard anybody. Most of the guys on the Bulls couldn't guard a bank with a gun and a badge, and they got problems there. All right? Beam me up, Scotty. Beam me up. One of my favorite guys in the whole NBA. We gave this guy to you on our original draft board, I believe, as a guy that was going to be a star, going to be a stud. Scotty Barnes is back after an orbital socket injury, that's no good, folks, I can tell you that. But he's back in the Toronto lineup, and boy, did he deliver. This is the type of games that you're going to see from him moving into the future. 31 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists. He was 3 of 8 from three-point range. Just really, really good return game. The problem is he's in Toronto. And Toronto, cue up the Linda Ronstadt. You're no good. You're no good. You're no good. Whew, baby, you're no good. Kristaps Porzingis returns a mid-game, but he didn't have great numbers. But you could see what it did for the Celtics. It lifted them. It aerated them. Everybody was moving that rock. Everybody was getting into spots. White played great. Tatum played great. Anybody likes Peyton Pritchard coming off that bench, man? He's a dog, man. Peyton Pritchard comes off the bench for the Celtics, and he is an absolute dog. I love that kid. You got Shearman getting some minutes now. I think they can use him. Pete, if we can, let's slide into our NCAA Super 25. There it is, Pete. A thing of absolute beauty. Holy smokes, was this week rough.
Yeah, I was
up last night, and I know if you check the email that I sent you, I had an away game last night, so I got home a little bit late. But if you check the email that I sent you, we're talking like, it had to be after midnight. It had to be, close to 1 in the morning. Because these games out in Hawaii were still going on. I'm watching Kansas and Duke. Unbelievable basketball game. I'm watching Auburn and North Carolina late into the night. I don't even know who won. That one I fell asleep. And I didn't check it when I got up this morning. I should have, because it might have impacted our standings had North Carolina been able to come back and beat Auburn. But I'm not sure they did because they were down in that game. I got bad news for North Carolina fans, too. You got problems. You got some problems with that team. All right. Kansas beat Duke last night, Pete. They're number 1. All right, I was waiting for UConn to get knocked off. Not only did they get knocked off, they got knocked off twice. I bounced them completely out of the Super 25, and right now Kansas is king. Bill Self is a dude. Bill Self is a guy who we considered one of the best basketball coaches in all of the business. Hunter Dickinson ejected from the game last night for kicking one of the Duke players in the head. Questionable, maybe not. I don't really know. I would have to look at it a little closer. But Self certainly thought it was. The ejection warranted. I don't know if he kicked him in the head. It certainly was warranted. But they were able to hang on in that game. Very, very well-played game. Very well fought-out game. Con Nepple from Duke caught a shot at the end, in and out at the buzzer. I mean, it was a really exciting game. A very, very exciting game. But that gives Kansas the number 1. They're 6-0. Right now, in this frame, they got to be number 1. Pete, Number 2, Gonzaga. 5-0. They're playing good basketball. They got a good roster. This is one of Mark Few's best rosters, and it comes off a little bit of a rebuild, a revamp, but they're pretty good. Their guard play is terrific. Terrific guard play. Number 3, Auburn. Johnny Broom is up for Player of the Year candidate. Mark Sears, out the door. R.J. Davis, out the door. All of the guys you thought, Cooper Flagg, out the door in terms of Player of the Year category after what I saw in the Kansas game last night. Right now, out the door. Johnny Broom, I would say, is maybe one of the guys jumping to the forefront of being consideration for the Wooden Award. They're 5-0. He's playing great, and I didn't know he could shoot the ball from the outside like that. It's a little bit awkward, but it's been going in. And if he's 6'10", and he can make that ball going from the outside and the inside, he's going to be a weapon. This team is good, Pete. Marquette, I don't know how they did it. They lost Oso Ighodaro, and they lost Tyler Kolek. Both NBA draft picks, 2 great players for them as well, but they keep it going. Shaka's got it rolling. Cam Jones is a Player of the Year candidate as well. Take out all those other guys. That's what's great about In the Zone. We're rewriting the script every single week based on what we see. Every single week we're giving you a new update. We don't have an algorithm. We got me and Pete. We're the algorithm, baby. Marquette, 4-0. Number 4 at 6-0. Excuse me. Kentucky, number 5. Pope is dope. We're going to say it all year. 6-0. They're playing good basketball. They got some character wins, too. They beat Duke. They beat a good Duke team. Memphis, I moved them up to 6. I would encourage anybody, see if they're in the AP top 25. See if they're in Torvik. Torvik's got them in like the 40s or 50s. Now, I don't know if that was adjusted after the 2 upsets that they had, but look at any of those algorithms things and tell me that this team doesn't belong in the top 10 after being undefeated, beating UConn and Michigan State back-to-back in Hawaii. Who wants to tell me they don't belong in the top 10? Those geeks do. Those geeks do. Okay. This team's playing really well too, Pete. Wisconsin, 7-0. They are buoyed by John Tanji playing out of his mind. He had 41 the other night against Arizona. Florida, 6-0. They decided to redshirt the big O, 7'9", Olivier Roux. I was a little bit unhappy about that, but they know what's going on. They also got a whole lot of smoke going around about their coach, Title IX investigation, all sorts of different things swirling there, but they've been able to maintain the focus, and that I'm not going to penalize the team if their coach is doing stuff wrong. They're 6-0. I'm going to keep them right there. The Ducks are quacking, Pete, Oregon Ducks. They're moving into the Big Ten, and they may be able to win that conference right off the get-go, being in there for the inaugural year. I'd be surprised if they didn't. Indiana, 4-0. When you say Jay Billis says Duke has the best lineup and then watch that game last night and say Duke has the best lineup in the country, that's crazy. Indiana's lineup's better than Duke's. Kansas's lineup's better than Duke. Kentucky's lineup is better than Duke. Arkansas's lineup might be better than Duke's. That would be contingent upon Arkansas finding themselves a real basketball coach, but hey, we'll see if time develops. Tennessee, 11, 6-0. Rick Barnes, he's Cannoli City right now, though, Pete. I know everybody's got him in the top 5. He's Cannoli City. I dropped him to 11. Cincinnati, 5-0. Keep an eye on this team, folks. The Bearcats, I like them. I like their style. I like their talent. They can shoot. They can pass. They handle. I like it. I like it. Watch Cincinnati. I thought they'd die in the Big 12. I thought them and BYU were absolutely nuts for going into the Big 12. It has absolutely helped and buoyed their program. And if BYU is successful getting A.J. DeBonsa to go, the Big 12 is going to be lit up. The Big 12 is going to be absolutely lit up. I'm going to stop just for a second, Pete, because I'm going to give A.J. DeBonsa and I'm going to give a lot of these other guys a little bit of advice. If you think you're one and done, and everybody's telling you you're one and done, go to the conference that's going to be the least competitive. Don't go to the Big 12 because you're going to get roughed up. Don't go to the SEC because you're going to get roughed up. Cooper Flagg right now, everybody's talking about him being the number 1 pick. I ain't sold right now, Pete. I'm not jumping on that bandwagon. All right, let's jump back in. 13, Mississippi State, after a quick segue, they're 5-0, playing good basketball. Chris Jans, they've got some talent down there. BYU, we put them in at 14. They're 5-0, playing really good basketball, and they have some significant losses to the portal as well, but they've been able to maintain program integrity. They lost Mark Pope, who was their coach. He went to Kentucky. They brought in Kevin Young. They seem to be able to hold the barrel. Mississippi 5-0. This guy got ran out of Texas, and I understand it, but that shouldn't show up in your algorithm, should it? They got this Mississippi team just like they did last year. This team was 11-0, and they had them outside the top 25. 5-0. Chris Beard does a good job. He's a good coach. NC State, I'm going to put them in, Pete, because they're undefeated right now, and they're playing good basketball. And I think right now they're actually they bumped up last night and went 5-0, and they're doing good stuff. Xavier, Zach Freemantle, we gave you that name. Keep an eye on him in the NBA draft. He's playing good basketball. Sean Miller has this team at 6-0. Let's see how they do when they get into the Big East. But I could see them finishing in the top 3 in the Big East right now. Xavier fans, they had a little bit of a wait, but they might be back. They could be back. They're certainly an NCAA team, in my opinion. St. Mary's. Pete, I slid in St. Mary's on you out of Utah State. All right? I took 6-0. I looked at it. I took Utah State. I didn't have time to change it with you, but I pulled them out when I looked at Utah State's cupcake schedule. Plus, they're going to go down to the Bonnies on Thursday, going to hang a loss on Utah State. Purdue, this team, Braden Smith, is leading the nation in assists, doing really, really good stuff. Illinois, 20. They got bumped up, but they have Will Riley. They have some good talent, and they got a great coach, Brad Underwood. Solid coach. Alabama, I don't know. Mark Sears is kind of out of it right now, not producing anywhere near the numbers that he was last year. Might have a little bit of a target on his back this year. But Alabama 5-1, they'll rise. They'll get back. All of these Big 12 teams that got cooked a little bit, Houston's cooked twice. Iowa State almost got cooked by Dayton last night, but they got cooked previous. They'll be back. They'll be back. But right now, we're bouncing them. North Carolina 4-1. They're not playing good basketball. They almost lost to Dayton the other night. Dayton team's really good. They're playing UConn tonight, I believe. That's a tough game. All right. But North Carolina 4-1, we left them in there. Duke lost last night. Second loss, we took them out. Texas Tech is 5-1. Iowa State, the Cyclones, 5-1. And we threw Drake in there at 6-0. Why not? Okay, here's a couple of sidebars out of that top 25 for you, Pete. The Huskies have been hit twice. They got hit by Memphis and then they were plus 15 in that game. They were 15-point favorites over Colorado. Tad Boyle does a fabulous job. I knew that 15 was going to be too much because that Memphis game can create a hangover. That game was so intense, so rough that you got to come back the next day. On top of the fact that it was probably, I don't know, how long does it take to get from Hartford to Hawaii, Pete?
Oh, it's got to be at least 12, 14 hours.
So you just took a 12, 14-hour flight.
Maybe more.
Even more. You're banging around. If everything went well, you got in there in 12 hours. All the land transportation went well. Everything went according to plan. You're still talking about a 15, 16-hour day. Now you're going to travel. Every team has to do it, so it's not something. But if you're out in UCLA, it's certainly a little shorter to go to Hawaii from there. But they got whacked twice there, and so that's a baseline. Memphis was a backyard brawl. And they came undone a little bit. Their defense needs improvement. UConn's defense has to improve. Not the same as it was the last couple of years. Colorado, plus 15 game, and they lost it. Really good basketball game, too. But Duke was caught in the UK-KU net. All right, what does that mean? They lost to UK, and then they lost to KU. Those are not bad losses by any stretch of the imagination. Coach Shire and his team doing a really, really good job, putting the team in the right spots. I just said it earlier in the year, they're just not a top-tier team. They don't have a lot of talent. And if you watched that Kansas game last night, and you watched Cooper Flagg, and you watched 3 turnovers that he had in that game, which were just really, really bad turnovers, he ain't my number one right now. I don't have a number one right now, but it's certainly not Cooper Flagg. Okay, St. John's dropped 2. They lost to Baylor, then they lost to Georgia. They pummeled Virginia in between there, but they got some issues as well. The Baylor game in double overtime, one of the best games of the year, was Baylor-St. John's in double overtime. I say this to my team, I think just about every single day, rebounding. You win with rebounding. If you don't rebound, you lose. St. John's missed 2 free throws at the end there, had a chance to get a rebound, didn't come down with it. Baylor goes down the floor. Jeremy Roach of Duke fame hit the game winner. Tough loss for them. Houston, we got a shooting problem. Okay? The Houston Rockets are doing great, but the Houston Cougars, they got a shooting problem. They have two very, very credible losses. They lost to Alabama 85-80 in overtime, and then they lost to Auburn 74-69. I don't know. We'll see what shakes out with them, but they do have a problem shooting the ball, Pete. They do have a problem shooting the ball. Let's update you on our Player of the Year update. Cooper Flagg, Player of the Year? Don't think so. Don't think it's going to happen. I'll give you a couple of reasons why. Number one, that Duke team isn't as good as everybody thinks it is. Number two, he plays in the offense well, but his ability to be a one-on-one player, which is tantamount in the NBA, is not really where it should be right now in terms of his overall focus and game. So, and they took the ball out of his hands way too easy at the end of that game last night, just way, way too easy. And his offensive game and skill set just doesn't say number one to me. Certainly not a guy that's going to be in consideration. So we have Cooper Flagg, we got Mark Sears, we've got R.J. Davis. Right now, they're out. They're out of Player of the Year consideration for us. Now we're going to run in the guys who have taken the opportunity, come up the flagpole, and now have really, really had a start to the season, which sets them up, portends to bring them into that conversation, the John Wooden conversation, which is the award that everybody wants. Here they go, Pete. John Tanji of Wisconsin. He had 41 against Arizona. He's putting up significant numbers. And he's one of the big reasons that they're undefeated right now. Wisconsin's undefeated right now. Okay, Cam Jones from Marquette threw up the last triple-double that since Marquette history since Dwayne Wade. The kid can play. The kid is carrying his team on his back, and they're undefeated. Give Cam Jones a look. Dylan Harper from Rutgers. Everybody was all pumped up about Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey is not, just like Cooper Flagg, not exactly what was advertised, in my opinion, but Dylan Harper certainly is. He can shoot, he can pass, he can handle. He's a really good player, and he comes from great lineage. All right? Dylan Harper has to be in the conversation. Maybe the only freshman right now that I would have in that conversation. Hunter Dickinson, not a huge fan. Not a huge fan. But last night in the Duke game, I mean, you don't want to see anybody kick anybody in the head, but his physical play last night impressed me a little bit. He met the day. Duke played very physically with him, and he met the day and got after it. I wouldn't suggest kicking somebody in the head while you're rolling around on the ground and getting ejected, but it seemed to have, a little effect on him. Now, he's playing a lot tougher right now, and that's what I wanted to see from him. I wanted to see him light it up. He's a big dude. I wanted to see him get out there and start chucking some people through windows, and that seems like he's doing a little bit more of that. Okay, Johnny Broom. Right now, Tanji, Jones, and Broom are your 1, 2, 3. They absolutely are. People are going to be shocked by that, but there's your 1, 2, 3 right now. Mackenzie Mabako from Indiana is playing great basketball. Got to throw him in. Got to throw him into the conversation. This conversation's going to play out over the year because this is going to be rough. Walter Clayton from Florida is in the conversation. He's putting up huge numbers. He's one of the huge reasons that Florida's undefeated right now. Unbelievable. Here's a name from the past that folks will remember. Jamal Mashburn. Played at Kentucky. Played for the Miami Heat for years. His son is killing it for Temple right now. Absolutely killing it for Temple right now. Problem is, we're going to bring you up Temple a little bit later in the show, and it ain't great. Braden Smith from Purdue. They lost the Big Z. They also lost Daniel Jacobson, who was their freshman replacement to Zach Edey, and Purdue's playing good basketball. Painter is Monet. And Braden Smith is leading the NCAA in assists right now. He's number one. Now, here's some guys who dropped the ball. Wade Taylor IV from Texas A&M. Numbers are way down. Averaged over 20 a game last year. He's under 15 right now. R.J. Davis from UNC. His numbers are the same, but this team don't look great. And he's got to lead. He's got to get out there and get those young players to jump in. Rather than just worrying about scoring the ball, improving draft position, he's going to have to go in there and lead with this team. He's going to have to be a significant voice in that locker room to get those young guns around to where they need to play. The young man, Powell, kind of bit overrated, I think. And some of these young freshmen, as you see them now jump in, everybody's so excited about the new kid in town, the Hotel California, the Eagles, but then you really got to go through the battles. And it's one of those things where it can be a Hotel California of sorts because you can never leave. You know, some guys get in there and one and done. Yeah, you're not one and done. Mark Sears from Alabama, another guy, struggling. Okay, this is what we talked about just a second ago when we talked about Jamal Mashburn Jr., completely unrelated to Mr. Mashburn. But this is in the Told You So segment of our show. All right? Former Temple guard Hyzir Miller bet on his own games and manipulated outcomes of games that he played in. This is nowhere on any of the major networks right now that you're finding. They're not covering this. They're burying it. And that's one of the things that the news media does. Sometimes they're promoting things that they want to promote, like Duke or Kentucky or any of the Blue Bloods. They promote them through algorithm, okay? But now they're promoting this stuff through Sportsbook and through all of this other gambling that's going on in the game. And everything that goes bad, the other side of it is instead of the promotion is the demotion. Okay, they don't let the story get out. They don't let people see the truth. They don't let people see what's really, really going on in the game right now. And Hyzir Miller is a capsule of what's happening with all of these young men who are now being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars and have a line on every single one of the games that they play. The line movement in the game, they were playing UAB. It was a 2-point line that came out, which then moved up to 8 points, which grabbed everybody's eyes. How do you move a line, Pete? I'll tell you. Start the line at 2. Let's say it's Temple UAB. Temple's getting 2 points. UAB's losing 2 points, laying 2 points, right? And so that's your line. When you see UAB have to lay now 8 points when they were laying 2, that means a whole lot of people bet on Temple. A whole lot of people put money on Temple, forcing the bookmakers to do one of two things. They're going to move the line, and then they're going to offshore it. So I'm going to give it to you quick. All right, Pete, I got all of the money in that game on Temple and UAB. 85% of the money is on Temple. And me, as a bookmaker, I'm having trouble making that number if they lose. If I lose. If the bet loses.
Yeah, you run out of money.
You have to pay everybody off, you run out of money. So what I do is I bet with Pete. I'm going to lay off the action that I have with Temple. I'm going to bet UAB with Pete. And so that's what the bookmakers do in order to move it. But when you see line movement go like that, 6-point line movement, those are things that make you go,
Yeah, because all those people locked it in at a lower rate, lower line.
And you got, guys in there that they have now. The FBI has come out and said they manipulated the outcome of the game. Temple Sportsbook was alerted. Temple game Sportsbook, who is the gambling entity, was alerted by U.S. Integrity out of Las Vegas that they monitor sports betting. Okay, the 6-point line movement. Of course, he was dismissed after that, and then tried to transfer, and did successfully transfer to Virginia Tech, only to be further dismissed from the team.
Oh, good Lord.
Okay, Pete, second segment of Holy Kalkbrenner. We talked about it last week, the week before, that this guy was now in consideration for Player of the Year. And I didn't bring him up in that last conversation, did I?
Nope.
All right, during the game, part 2. He takes 0 field goals, makes 0 field goals in a 74-63 loss to Nebraska while playing 39 minutes. He attempted only 1 field goal, which was a 3-pointer. He's 7 foot. He had 4 points based on free throws only. Holy Kalkbrenner. John Tanji, we talked about him. Wisconsin. Going to give you a little bit of a capsule right here, Mr. Tanji, because we like what you're doing. Wisconsin player follows up a 50-piece nugget versus Arizona with 33 and 25 in the second half. Took Wisconsin to victory over Pitt, and Pitt's pretty good. Super 25 prospects that have dropped out, Pete, are Connecticut. The Huskies, we had to take them out. One loss,
Yeah,
might
sure.
have left him in. 2 losses, got to take him out.
2 losses nearly back to back. That's a no-go.
And one of the things that I'm noticing, in addition to my comment about UConn's defense, one of the things that I'm noticing is that their offensive pace, meaning the frequency and the fluidity at which they're entering their offense, is off. A lot of people, after the first loss, were ripping Mahaney, the guard they brought in from St. Mary's. They said he wasn't up for the task, shouldn't be the starting point guard. They put in Hassan Diarra, who's a very, very good point guard as well. But I think one of the issues that they're having right now is in the lineup. I'm not sure that they know who's the best lineup for them right now. Solomon Johnson in the Memphis game got tangled up with somebody. And this is what I said earlier. When the coach on the sidelines has that level of intensity and it can be kind of bouncing around out there, your team has a tendency to follow. Solomon Johnson, unbelievable big man for UConn, got tangled up with somebody and wound up just taking the guy and pushing him to the ground, drawing another technical foul. And those 2 technical fouls were really, really big in the outcome of the game. As I learned as a coach a long time ago, try not to be involved in the outcome of the game. Let your players decide the outcome of the game and leave it at that. All right? But again, in his press game conference, Coach Hurley alluded to a couple of calls that didn't go their way. I think he's going to draw some heat from the NCAA on that. I think that might be something that he's the type of guy that might tell the NCAA, I'm not paying the fine.
Well, is he trying to draw the heat to maybe focus his team?
I think he's trying to draw some of the heat off of his team, but
Yeah.
it's also something that's really, really hard to do because right after a game, I mean, basketball games for coaches are physical encounters. Their whole body is just, it's like lifting weights. It's like it's even much worse. People don't realize it. And then they come out right after that and they stick a microphone in their face. And then you're supposed to be rational. You're supposed to be cogent. You're supposed to be coherent. And at the end of the day, you just went through, they had an overtime game, 45 minutes of just physical duress, mental duress. And when you come out now and you say, I didn't like those calls, everybody jumps up and says, you can't say that about the officials. Everybody jumps up and will reprimand him. They will fine him, most likely. And I pray to God that he takes some of that money that he just earned from UConn, gets himself a really, really good law firm, and says, I ain't paying. I have a First Amendment right to say whatever I want to say. And as long as it's not derogatory towards the game, I was making an actual commentary on something that happened in the game, they need to take their hands off of that stuff, if you ask me. Now, you don't want these guys hammering the refs, or you don't want these guys going out and just making that a part of business, because one of the first things that happens when you stick that microphone in one of the coaches' faces, and I've seen this with great, great coaches, they start to make excuses. They start to draw reasons. You saw it with Pitino. You saw it with Krzyzewski. You see it with Hurley. They look for other reasons because they're just so stressed at that moment. If you give them a little bit of time to clear out, I think you would get a little bit of a more cogent response from them. But it happens right after the game. They take them out of the locker room. They just speak to the team, drag them down the hall, and now you got to give a press conference. And to be honest with you, after you just lost a game, some of those writers don't mind poking the bear. Some of those writers don't. I mean, I used to sit after the Colgate-Syracuse game. We'd wait for the team to get dressed. I would love to go down and watch our coach and Jim Boeheim's coach give the post-game press conference.
I watched it several times at UMass.
Right. And they blow us out by 30. Blow us out by 30. Just killed us that night. And they're sitting there going to Boeheim, Coach, the team didn't look interested tonight. He goes, we won by 30. He goes, Coach, how about the effort tonight? He goes, we just won by 30 points. I mean, the questions. I mean, he had won a game. So I could imagine, like you're going in to poke Bobby Knight after he just had a really bad loss. Again, you might want to consider a way around that, you might want to consider a way of getting some level of I don't know what you would even call it, some kind of perimeter or some kind of obstacle between that and this, because you'll get better results. You'll get better results. Okay, Pete, what's wrong with Duke? Nothing. They're young. Those 2 games, Kansas and Kentucky, they were in both of them. They lost at the buzzer to the number 1 team in the country. So don't send up the alarm flag yet. But I will tell you, there are some things to be concerned about with that team. Knuppel isn't great on defense. Flag, not great on defense. Their big man down below, Malak, is kind of very, very limited offensively. He's the binary B equation of the center these days. He's going to set high ball screens, but he's not skilled. He's not going to shoot the ball, not going to spread the floor. And that's what I think they could use right now a little bit of. They could use somebody to open that floor up a little bit, because Flag's best game isn't shooting jumpers. Flag's best game isn't laying back on that three-point line and shooting. He's got to get at the rim. He can dunk. He can fly. He's a really good athlete. But if you're going to be in college basketball and you expect the lane to be open like that, it's not. It won't be. And that's what I said when we get to ACC play, because he was at Montverde. And they had Liam McNeely and him on the same team with about 15 other Division I players. They would beat everybody by 100 points. The games weren't competitive. And you look great in those games because you're just much better than everybody else. I'm interested to see what happens when all of that comes down, all of that recalibration. St. John's had them in the top 25, excited about them, but they got bounced twice. So lost to Georgia. You know, Georgia's tough. Asa Newell's really good, but they're an SEC team. And St. John's, you know, very close game, you know, didn't hold up. But again, 2 losses going to bounce you out. And I thought, to be honest, St. John's was a little bit overrated. And what's happened with Kadari Richmond, I really don't know. He was a high-paid guy they brought in from Seton Hall, expected him to be great, and it really hasn't been great. Pete, blessings, gratefulness, happy Thanksgiving to all of our people in the zone. We value you. We treasure you for watching our show, for getting us lit every week, taking time out of your busy schedule. We thank you. We hope you and your families have the greatest of the holiday season, and may you have blessings and things to be grateful for as well. We're in the zone, Pete. We'll see you next week.